first of all, can you tell me a little bit about how you feel about the Senators' current season?
Sure, feel pretty good about our season. Despite the injuries, I think our team's played reasonably well and hanging in there and are in a playoff position right now. And we're I think encouraged by the play of the younger players, which I think validates the fact that we're on the right track. We've got a good group of guys together, and whether it's this year or next year or the year after, I think sometime in the near future we've got the right group here that can challenge for a Stanley Cup.
Can you tell me a little bit about your background before you became involved in the Senators?
Well, got to go back quite a ways. I'm a chartered accountant, so I was trained as a CA here in Ottawa. Worked for an accounting firm, and when I received my designation, really my first job as a CA was working for Bruce Firestone and in real estate development, and worked for Bruce for about almost 3 years, and then he had the idea to pursue an NHL franchise, and so I guess ever since then I've been either pursuing or involved with an NHL team.
After a bit of a Lloyd Boschman interview, how did Bruce first propose the idea of going after a team to you?
Oh, that's a great story, Bruce. When we were working together, we played hockey on a regular basis, so we had a regular game of pickup every Saturday morning, and from 11 till 12, and 12 o'clock, game was over, you have a few beers and then go out for lunch, usually at the Prescott here in town. And one day after the shinny, Bruce asked myself and Randy Sexton to stick around, and he proposed the idea at that point that the league expands every now and then, and hadn't expanded in a while, and they will probably expand soon. And why don't we take up the charge to pursue a franchise for Ottawa?
What was your reaction to that?
Well, at the time, it was really out of left field. And Bruce didn't give us any advance warning. It was just, I guess, a complete surprise. But certainly, I was enthusiastic about it. I mean, I've been involved in sports as a kid all my life, and really had a passion for sports. So didn't take too much convincing to get Randy and I interested in at least having a further look at it. But I guess the accountant in me said, better do some work here before we get too carried away. And didn't take too long at my end, having done some review of what the teams were doing, the new arenas they were building, to figure out that Bruce was right, that the city could support a team, and that we should be chasing after a team for Ottawa.
So what was the first step in entering an expansion phase?
Well, really, at that time there was no expansion process. So the step was to express interest to help get the league thinking, well, maybe we should expand. So at that point, we really set about formulating a long-term plan to go from where we were with this idea to getting the league to formally admit new expansion franchises. And really, with that, the first step in that was getting that plan done, and the first step after that was getting Bruce in front of the different owners at the time. At the time there was 21 different teams, so get Bruce in front of the 21 owners so they got to meet him and know that we were serious. And if it came down to an either-or situation, at least they would have met him initially and had the opportunity to spend some time with him.
Okay. What was your role in the expansion personally?
Well, I mean, we weren't a very big company at the time. It was only 14 people that worked for Terrace Investments. So, we all did a little bit of everything. So, my role ranged from helping recruit sponsors to help with the public campaign, and then when we really got a little more serious, one of my main responsibilities was completing the bid document that we were going to submit to the league, and help formulate the business plan for both the Senators and the building. So try to tie those two together. They were kind of key. Could we get a plan that A, made sense to us, and B, would make sense to the league from a financial point of view, and then tie that into an overall submission.
Did you ever feel that it was legitimately possible for the NHL to come to Ottawa?
Yeah, we get that question a lot. There never was a moment where we doubted that it wasn't possible. If it had been, we wouldn't have pursued it certainly wouldn't have pursued it as hard and as passionately as we did. We were a small group that really believed that that A, we could do it, and B, the city could support a team.
Were there other people who said what you were doing was impossible?
Yeah, there was lots of those. There was lots of critics, that thought that Ottawa can't do it, and we wouldn't get a team, and we're wasting our time, and we weren't big enough as a city. We weren't big enough as a company. Lots of reasons. A lot more excuses why we couldn't get a team than reasons to get behind and support it. But in the end, I think Bruce was right. From he called first principles. We're the fourth largest city in the country. We had a high disposable income. We had a great, rich tradition and history of hockey. It's played everywhere here at all levels, and a team with a proper arena could be successful here in Ottawa. And he was right.
Describe to me the roles of these two individuals in particular, Bruce Firestone and Jim Darrell.
Well, certainly Bruce was sort of the visionary and the lead, and he was the guy that was driving this process forward, and deserves the bulk of the credit for the Senators materializing and being here now. And really, Bruce was the guy that had the idea, had the personal wherewithal, the personal effort to go out there and chase after the team. And Jim at the time was the mayor and was a big supporter. Jim's also a big presence. So when you have him on your team, whether it's trying to lead a city or trying to convince the Board of Governors to give Ottawa a team, he certainly was a big asset and did play a material role in us getting the franchise.
Now, we don't have an interview with this person, so please go into detail. What can you tell me about the involvement of Randy Sexton?
Randy and I obviously were colleagues, and we've been best friends for a long period of time. So I know Randy very well, and Randy really was the guy that had a lot of contacts within the NHL. He played hockey at a high level and met a number of different people that are involved in the sport. And he was able to get us particularly get Bruce in to see all the key people at the NHL, whether it's at the league office or team owners or general managers. Randy really made it his mission. He kept a book on every one of the owners, so he knew how many kids they had, when their birthdays were. He knew everything about the owners that was important for Bruce, important for us, and really was one of the driving forces as well that pushed hard and woke up every day trying to figure out what could he do to help move the bid forward so we'd be successful. And I know Randy. He too never doubted for a minute that the bid would be successful.
How did you make your reaction to go after a team publicly known?
That's another great question. We really felt that we first needed to have some credibility behind it, because the first question going to be asked was, well, who are these guys and who's Terrace Investments? And we didn't have a high profile in the city, and we really wanted to make sure we made that first step forward with something behind us. So Bruce was convinced, and again I think he was right, that we needed to have a site assembled where we were going to build the arena and sort of make that our home, so that we could say we've got the land, we have a plan for an arena, we know where it's going to go. It wasn't just talk, it was some action behind it. So from the day that we talked first about going after the team, we spent the next 2 years getting ready before we made our intentions public. And most of the work in that period was doing the business plan and assembling the land where the arena now sits, and an additional 500 acres around this site. So we bought the 600 acres of land here in Canada prior to announcing our intention We bought 600 acres of land here in Canada prior to announcing our intention to publicly seek an expansion franchise. And the day after we got the last piece of land that we needed, we made the announcement via fax, which was something else we took a little bit of criticism for. And then back in that day, there was no email, so it was a fax that we sent out to all the local media saying that the Terrace Investments intended to seek a franchise, an expansion franchise in the National Hockey League. And there wasn't even a plan of expansion at that point either. So it really was, again, I think caught the local media and the local community a bit by surprise that A, there was somebody who's going to go after a franchise, and B, that there was expansion was a possibility.
What was the overall reaction from inside
I think a lot of skepticism at that time because again, we were a small company. Bruce was not well known. You know, not a lot of people really, here believed that Ottawa could support a team. They didn't really believe in the city and didn't believe in themselves. And we certainly had a different view. We thought that the city was growing up, was being less reliant on government. That the tech sector was becoming more important, and it was growing. At the time, was 900,000 people, and we could see clearly that within a short period of time, we're going to be over 1 million people in the metropolitan area. So there was a lot of skepticism, and the media weren't kind. Asking all the tough questions and just not believing that this bid was real. They thought it was more of a real estate play than it was a real bid for an NHL team.
Do you remember any particular moments when someone told you it can't be done?
There was a few of them. There was a couple. The most memorable, I guess, would be sort of just the press, the number of the editorials here in the local newspaper saying that that it couldn't be done. And B, the night before we got the franchise, one of the owners from another team told Bruce that there's no chance you're going to get a franchise. And in hindsight, he was just trying to test us on for size to see what our reaction would be, whether we'd pack up our tent and go home, or would we hang in there and tough it out. But at that time, it seemed pretty real that he was pretty serious that we wouldn't get a team. But we in all those cases persevered and went forward and got the right result.
Why did you refuse to give up?
Well, again, a lot of reasons for that. I think just at the beginning of the process, if you'd laid out all the different hurdles that had to get over to get the franchise and get the arena built, you might not have even started the process. It was just such a long list. But once you got involved and got into the process and you reached a hurdle, we were just, okay, here's something we got to get over if we really want to get the franchise. And again, I think just a determination and a passion by everybody involved that really wanted to see this through and thought it was the right thing to do and the right thing to get our own personal support behind. And secondly, I think just Bruce's leadership and his drive. He was really pushing us and pushing the group to go forward, not give up, and don't back down. And that really was was a rallying cry for our group. And I think the more people came out and said it can't be done, I think that just hardened our resolve and made us want to do it even more.
This is kind of a broad question. Can you describe to me the day the franchise was granted?
Sure, that's one of those days that you remember just about every detail. We were at the hotel, the Breakers Hotel in Florida, and there was no time schedule for announcing, and we didn't even know if they were going to announce what. We didn't even expect that while we were there we would hear. We thought we were going down to make a presentation, we'd come home, there'd be more questions, or maybe some more due diligence. It might take some time to award a franchise, but we made the presentation on a Thursday. Is that right? I think on a Thursday. Certainly at least on the 5th of December, we made the presentation, and we were going to be there until the 7th or 8th before we were coming home because we had to, thought we should hang around in case there was more questions. And on the 6th, we were just hanging around the hotel. There was a bunch of supporters down there, 125, so there was a golf outing arranged for those people. So they were out in the golf course, and Bruce was out for a run. And we got a call from the NHL that to get our group of 5 presenters together, that they wanted to see us within a couple hours, and to be at our room, at Bruce's room, and they were going to come up to meet us. So there was a scramble to find Bruce because he was out running. So we found Bruce, got him back. He got back just in time. Didn't have time to shower. Just put a suit on. The league showed up at his hotel room. They took us down the back stairs of the Breakers Hotel. We were in the areas you're not supposed to see at this hotel. The back of the house, the stairwells, went through the kitchen, ended up leading us into this big grand ballroom, and there was 5 of us positioned in this ballroom. And again, we didn't know what it was about. We didn't know they'd made a decision. Just said, wait here and someone will come and get you. And while they were doing that, they brought down the group from Tampa Bay. So we met Phil Esposito and his group, met us in that ballroom, and immediately began to speculate whether they'd made a decision. And Phil thought for sure that this was the winner's room because he saw the Ottawa guys there, and we weren't so sure if we had won or not. But what they were doing was they were telling the losers at that time that they had not been awarded a franchise and wanted us sequestered while they were making those calls. And about a half an hour later, they brought us into the room where the Board of Governors were to let us know that we were awarded the franchise and to tell us that in 5 minutes there was going to be a press conference, that they were going to make the announcement, and we want us all to be there. So we found out, went into another room, had a press conference to announce we had a team and that we'd play 2 years later. And then after that, there was obviously a wild celebration. All the group from Ottawa that was there celebrated that night, and I think all through the next day, and came home on the Sunday. And that's really how the franchise was won.
What was your emotions throughout that day, from when it seemed very bad to when you felt it was?
Yeah, there was a period there, as I said, the night before, where they thought we weren't going to get the team, and we'd actually gotten up very early that morning. I left that part out. We got up at 6 o'clock to get down to the breakfast area to make sure we met any of the governors from the other owners from the other teams, just to say, hey, look, we're Ottawa, keep us in mind. We didn't know, but they'd already made the decision the day before, and after we made our presentation, they had a meeting and voted that Ottawa and Tampa were in. But so we didn't know that, so we were up lobbying them. They kept saying, don't worry, you guys will be okay. And so we were a little, like, in the morning, concerned, we were concerned whether we were going to get a team, to extreme jubilation when we were walked into the governor's room, and we knew at that point that we had been awarded a franchise. And certainly at Bruce's end, it was pretty emotional when it was announced, and a lot of excitement on our part for sure.
What were the difficulties between that moment when you got the franchise and opening night? What were some real things that stick out in your mind?
Oh, there was a number of difficulties. Getting from there. First we had to form a limited partnership and raise the equity we needed to buy the franchise. So that took a long time, a lot of effort, and hadn't been for the 65 local partners, businesses in town that got behind the team, we never would have got the team here. So just being awarded the franchise was one small step. That limited partnership group and that people that got behind the team and supported it was certainly a huge hurdle. Then we were opposed on the arena site. The premier at the time, David Peterson, called an election and lost. So we had the first and only NDP government in Ontario, and they were opposing the building of the arena here. So we had a long fight with the government as well prior to opening night. But on the hockey side, and getting ready for business, and getting our team ready, that wouldn't say that went smooth, but that certainly was the easy part of the work. It was those bigger hurdles with the raising the money and getting ready for the arena that were the big stumbling blocks between December of 1990 and October of 1992.
Mr. Firestone told us quite a bit about that situation you just mentioned with the NDP government. Could you give us any more details on what the situation was there?
Yeah, we didn't have we weren't in the room with them when they were making all their policy decisions, but we just had a handshake agreement with the Liberal government prior to the NDP government that if we got the team, they were not going to put any money into the team, but they would build the infrastructure that was required in the area, the roads and the interchange to service the arena, as long as we were funding the cost of the arena. And when the NDP came into power, there was an opposition to even having the arena here at all. So there was a full-on hearing. Bruce probably gave you all the details. He really was on the stand for about 6 weeks of an OMB hearing, which is really unprecedented at something of that size. And at the end, we really ended up with the approval anyway, but it really did delay us, caused a lot of unnecessary money to be spent, and really put us a couple of years behind on our development plans.
What would you say was your lowest moment with this process?
Lowest moment. Well, there's a lot of highs and lows, and in this type of process, I'd say the lowest moment probably was when we heard that the NDP, the Liberals had lost the election, and then the NDP was opposing us. So, lowest moment would have been really during that OMB hearing, when when there was a real risk that everything we'd fought so hard for could be lost.
Was there ever a real possibility that you thought you were going to lose the team?
Oh yeah, we were worried. We were real concerned that the league was pretty adamant that we couldn't stay at the Civic Center forever, and that we needed a new arena, and they weren't going to be patient forever. So we knew we had to get that site approved and get on with developing this building, get on with building the new arena. So, and there was a real risk there at that time that wasn't going to get approved.
I've heard that there was an offer from Anaheim to buy the team and move it there. Is that true?
No, I don't think there ever was a real bona fide offer, unless Bruce had one and didn't share it with me. There was certainly the league making noises that there were cities and owners that wanted a franchise, and if we were not able to get our house in order, so to speak, and get the arena built, that there would be a way to sell the franchise if need be. They weren't insisting that it be done, but they were just suggesting that if you can't get it done, there is a way to to move the franchise if you need to.
Was there ever a moment when, despite all these hardships, you realized this is really going to happen?
Well, I think for most part we thought it was going to happen. We were the guys that really were believers from the get-go. When did I know that we were going to get the team? I think 100% I didn't know until we were walking into the room that day on December 6, 1990, where the governors were, and they were congratulating us as we were walking in. That's when I really knew. But up till that point in time, you really was an educated belief or a guess that, look, we're on the right track and we should be successful. If you're asking whether I thought we'd get the building built and be a long-term success, I think when we made the playoffs in 1997 and the city and really got behind the team, and we saw a different level of support. I really felt at that point that the franchise had arrived, and it was a big league franchise, and we really had done something special with the fan base, and that they were getting behind the team in a meaningful way.
How did you come to choose your players?
The players in 1992, we didn't have a lot of choice there. In fact, that plan of expansion was a tough one, and it was so difficult on ourselves in Tampa that even 1 year later, when they brought in the next two teams, they changed the rules to allow those teams to acquire a better group of players than we were able to acquire. We got our players from an expansion draft where the teams could protect 2 goalies and 14 skaters, and then you could pick from the remaining group of guys. And every time you picked a player at a certain position, the other teams could protect somebody. So, we didn't get any good goalies. Peter Sidorkiewicz we were lucky to get Peter, but we didn't get a first-string goalie. We got Peter, who had been a second-string goalie at the time, and it was real difficult to put together a good team. And our draft picks that year, of course, weren't ready to play. So you really didn't have anybody other than the players that the other teams were prepared to let go that were on our team.
Take me through opening night. This is another broad question. What were the emotions from that?
Opening night obviously was a real gratifying and special night for everybody involved with the franchise. So, if you think about it, we'd started working on and planning in earnest, in a significant way, in 1987, to bring an NHL team to Ottawa. So it was over 5 years later, this team finally takes the ice and plays its first game, and we're playing, of course, the Montreal Canadiens. So it was a real special night, a huge range of emotions, certainly at my end, from fulfillment to gratification to excitement, because in one sense it felt like the end of all the hard work that we'd put in, but really it was just the beginning. As I look back now, it was really just the beginning of my career in professional sports. So it was a real special moment, certainly for the entire community, but especially for those that were really close to the franchise.
Is there any particular special moment you remember from that night that you would like to share?
From that night, well, obviously the first goal. So Neil Brady scoring the first goal in franchise history, and then when the final horn went, I remember Rick Bowness, the coach, going off and pointing to his wife up in the crowd and shaking his fist. There's a lot of great things that happened that day in that game, but certainly the first goal and the final horn and the jubilation from the crowd, certainly two things that stick in my mind.
I see a lot of footage from the pregame festivities on
Yes.
that night. How well do you remember those?
I remember them pretty well. There was a lot of pomp and ceremony. We really tried to harken back to the Roman theme. I remember us retiring Frank Finnegan's jersey number, so it's the only number that we have retired, number 8. And I remember retiring that. Frank Sr. was a real proponent of our bid. He was in his late 80s and was helping us. He's from Shawville, was helping us with the franchise, and unfortunately he passed away a few months before that opening night. So one of the ways we wanted to honor Frank was to retire his number on that opening night, because he wasn't there physically, but certainly he was there with us, and it was one of the things again that we remember. And the opening ceremonies, I remember the banners and the ice show. I remember Alanis Morissette singing the national anthem, who was then 16 and not really well known, but we thought she was something special here in Ottawa. And it was again, I think Ottawa standards, a big night and a real special night for everybody.
What do you think the community took away from what you had done? What do you think you would give them?
Well, I mean, I hope I hope what we've done is give them a real special legacy, long-standing asset here that everybody gets to enjoy, whether you're a hockey fan or not. I think that the arena and the team certainly has changed the way Ottawa does things. Hopefully, it changes the way that we think about ourselves. Allows us to bring big events here that we otherwise wouldn't get, and hopefully, it's put us on a. I think we were a major city, a big league city without a hockey team, but I think we're even more of a cosmopolitan and an international city with an NHL team, and I hope people think of the Senators as a real good corporate citizen, that we try to do right by the community that's been so good to us, and that's how we try to repay the thanks to the community is doing what we can to make Ottawa a better place.
Harkening back a little bit to when you mentioned that your theme song for the organization was "Never Back Down," would you say that really became a model for your whole organization?
Yeah, it definitely was. It was "Won't Back Down," "Won't Back Down" by Tom Petty. And it was a song that it really became a song, and then it was a motto. Then it was more of just a corporate culture. As we got further into the bidding process, was really dig into this thing and don't take a step back. No matter what the critics are saying, just hang in there and do what you think is right, and we'll see what happens. And that really was our culture at that time.
Do you think you could have done this if you had any other attitude besides that?
No, I don't think so. I think. Having looked back, if we just said let's take a year off and see what happens, or those guys are right, we better try something different. I think that would have been would not have resulted in us getting a franchise. I think the course of action that we took under Bruce's direction was right. Was to be first out of the gate, to make sure they knew who we were, to work harder than everybody else, to have the best possible presentation. If you stack this up, be better than everybody else by a wide margin, and just don't allow them an opportunity or reason to say no. It really was our strategy and our plan, and I think "Won't Back Down" was a real important credo and part of that.
What was it like to see the Palladium going up?
Well, for me, that was personally one of the most satisfying parts of the process, because that was one of my responsibilities. Once we got the team, I went from doing a little bit of everything to having to specialize in one thing, and that really was making sure that we got a new arena and built this building. So watching that go up in the development and seeing it open was, for me, gave me a real personal sense of pride, and something you can look at and look back at and say, look, the building was there, and I had a hand in making it happen. Well, I remember it very well, unfortunately, because we didn't score any goals that night. But around the process and the that led up to the opening. There was an open house a couple weeks in advance of the building actually opening. Then we had a workers' night on January 14th where we opened the building just to all the workers that had worked on the project. The 15th was official opening. It was a Bryan Adams concert. And then on January 16th we had a major ice show here. And then the 17th we had the first NHL game, the Canadiens and the Senators. And remember that game well. We didn't score. Montreal won 3-0, and it wasn't until our next home game that we actually scored the first goal here at Scotiabank Place. But the opening night with the concert I remember very well as well. I remember being here in a tuxedo with my family and a number of dignitaries that were here to open the building, to lots of ceremony, and it was a great night.
When do you think the team came of age?
I think the team came of age in 1997 when we made the playoffs. Even though we didn't win that first round, certainly I think was a coming of age. It was our 5th year in the league. We'd been dead last the first 4 years, but we had a plan. We wanted to stick with it, to draft well, hang on to our draft picks, and in that year 5 made the playoffs. We had a new coach. Jacques Martin was here, and the team had that attitude that they were going to work hard, and I really think that year we came of age.
That is all the questions I have for you right now. Are there any other things I might have missed that you would like to share with us?
No, that was pretty thorough.
Great.
Good.
Thank you.
All right, guys.